House Speaker Kevin McCarthy just walked out of his meeting from the White House. Let's listen.
Do you think that he will?
Look, I don't want to put any words in his mouth. We had an hour conversation about this that I thought was a very good discussion, and we walked out saying we would continue the discussion. And I think there is an opportunity here to come to an agreement on both sides. And I think that's the best I think that's what the American people want. Look, they want us to be responsible and sensible about this. And that's exactly the way we've handling it. I told the president I would like to see if we can come to an agreement long before the deadline, and we can start working on other things.
Mr. Speaker, where should those budget cuts come from right now? Medicare and Social Security, the White House insists Republicans want to cut. What cuts do you want?
Well, let me be clear about that, and I've been clear many times. No, we're not talking about that. And to really be able to do this right, I'm not going to negotiate this in the press, right? I respect the conversation we had together, and we will continue that.
Mr. Speaker, you said today that you have a big plan. When are you going to share that big plan?
Look, I think the president and I have talked about a lot of different ideas, and we'll work to see if we can come to an agreement. Look, I know you all have a job to do, but I don't think we'll come to an agreement if I negotiate with you. I think the respectful way to do it is to talk to the president as we did right now for more than an hour. We both walked away. We have different perspectives, but we both laid out some of our vision of where we'd want to get to. And I believe after laying both of out, I can see where we can find common ground. I think the American public would appreciate that. And look, I've been very clear. The current path we're on, we cannot sustain. We got to change the trajectory to put ourselves on a path to balance. How we get there will be our discussions.
Do you have a chance to talk with President Biden about supporting Ukraine? And can those budget cuts impact support for Ukraine from the United States?
What we talked about today was about moving forward and how we move through on a debt ceiling and how we get an agreement. I believe if we're able to get to an agreement, we could have a funding agreement for the next 2 years. You won't see omnibuses anymore. You'll see the Senate and the House actually do the job the American public has elected them to do, to walk through the appropriation process, which is the manner in which to do it, where the American public can see where we're spending our money. And I think there's a lot of savings we can find for the American taxpayer. Look, this is the hard-working taxpayers, and I know there's a lot of places where there's wasteful Washington spending. And I find that we can find an agreement there.
What's your reaction to China warning you against visiting Taiwan? Any reaction to China's warning against visiting Taiwan for you?
I don't think China can tell me where I can go at any time, at any place. No. Listen.
When will you share your plan, Mr. Speaker?
Listen. The president and I are trying to find a way that we can work together, and we will continue to do that. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Tell American parents raising their kids across this country right now, when they see this national debt at $31 trillion growing and growing, they're worried that their kids' future is going to be buried into that mounting debt. What do you tell those parents watching right now?
I'll tell those parents right there, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, to make sure their children do not have and continue this debt. If you just look, if we continue the trajectory that we're on, in the next 10 years, we'll spend $8 trillion just on interest. $8 trillion just on interest. What that means, though, too, because of the spending that has been going on, is that's why you have inflation. America's strength will shrink it. Everyone has always said, it doesn't matter what occupation you're in, whether you're a U.S. general or not, the greatest threat to America is our debt. Our debt is now at 120% of GDP, meaning our debt is larger than our economy. This is higher than at any time in American history. And it's higher at any time in American history when the revenues that are coming into government are higher than any other time. So we've got a lot of revenue, we just have a spending problem. And that's where I want to find that we could find common ground. Yes.
Speaker, can you commit that the U.S. will not default on its obligations?
Look, if I look at anything and you want to equate this, if you have a child and you give them a credit card and they spend that limit, you're responsible for paying that credit card. But the responsible thing, too, is going forward, not just raise the limit, but look at how you're spending. You know, I look at Chuck Schumer He's never passed a real budget. He's never passed any appropriation bills, but he puts a $1.7 trillion omnibus coming through. The American public doesn't want that. This is their hard-earned money. They don't want government to take more of it. They don't want it to waste it. So now is a moment in time. We've got 5 more months. I've just walked out having an hour conversation with this president that I tell you in perspective was a good conversation. No agreements, no promises, except we will continue this conversation. I want to continue it on behalf of the American people, on behalf of the parents, on behalf of every taxpayer here, that we put ourselves on a trajectory that makes America stronger, secure, and balanced. You both have already asked. Who has not asked a question? Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, what credibility do conservatives and Republicans have when they talk about reducing debt deficits?
That's a great
that
question.
Previous administrations, when Republicans had control of both the White House and Congress, ran up the bill.
Okay, let's just go by the sheer facts and figures, all right? So Republicans were in the majority for 8 years, and then the Democrats came in the majority for the last 4 years. So in the last 4 years, the Democrats have increased discretionary spending by 30%, over $400 billion. When the Republicans were in majority twice that long, the discretionary spending didn't go up $1, it went down $10 billion. So I think that the credibility lasts easily with the Republicans. If you want to argue about from a place where the past president, if you continue down the same path, this presidency will spend and put us in debt much greater than before. So look, I'm not in a place that I'm going to point fingers. I'm in a place of being the Speaker of the House. My role right now is to make sure we have a sensible, responsible ability to raise the debt ceiling, but not continue this runaway spending. This is a moment in time that for all American households, every family does this, every business does this, every state government, every county government. When they have spent too much, they rein back, look where waste is at, look where investments would be better, and sit down and talk in an adult fashion. That's the conversation I just had with the president, and that's the conversation I want to continue so we can come to an agreement.
Would you accept the condition to study spending cuts, or would you need actual spending cuts to justify doing that?
Look, I don't need a commission to tell me where there's waste, fraud, and abuse. I don't need a commission to tell us where we're spending too much. I don't need a commission to tell us we're a $31 trillion debt. Nobody needs a commission in the American public to tell us that we have spent too much, just like any family. So we don't need a commission to tell us to do our job that the American public elected us to do. For the next 5 weeks and hopefully, or 5 months, hopefully it doesn't take that long, we can sit down and solve this problem.
So you would rule that out?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the classified documents we know about and you search now? It's something affecting both parties. Did you talk to the president?
I did not talk to him about classified documents. I came down here to talk about the debt ceiling and our spending, and that's what we spent our time on.
Mr. Speaker, the Congress make more strong bills for North Korea's denuclearization. Are you going to more strong bills for that?
You know, come to another press conference. Right now is the conversation about mine with the president when it comes to debt ceiling and spending. Yes, ma'am.
Did you give details to the plans that you want in spending cuts with the president? Details with the president? Did you give him details?
Look, we talked in different perspectives. It was our first conversation about this. We talked about a lot of different ideas. And look, I don't want to give any false impressions. He gave me his perspective. I gave him our perspective. But I believe in hearing both perspectives, like anything else, be it business, be it in family, be it in relationships, that you can find common ground. There's nothing in there but me walking away that does not believe at the end of the day we can come to an agreement that makes America stronger, puts us on a path to balance, and exactly what the American people are asking us to do. It's our responsibility to do it. Last question.
Even if you do reach an agreement with the president, are you concerned that members of your own party are not going to go along with it?
No. We just met today at a conference. Look, the Republicans are very united. I think had we not been elected to the majority, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The American people would not have an advocate here to curb the waste in the spending that's happening. So I think this is a positive. This is exactly how government in America is designed, that you have to find compromise. The American people made a decision to have the Republicans in power in the House. The Democrats have a small majority in the Senate, and the Democrats have a president. But we're all Americans, and we all have to work together. But the one thing I do know, our debt is too high, we have waste in our government, and we need to sit down together in a responsible way to put us on a path to balance that will make the future of America stronger so the next century will be ours. Thank you all for the job you did.